Okay, everyone, we're going to now look at ethos, pathos, and logos. Those are the three elements that we will be working on in our papers. And I want to take you through each one of those. I'm sorry, it's not showing up well at the screen. There it goes, ethos, pathos, and logos. And what are those things? Well, let's find out because we're going to be writing about them. And these are rhetorical strategies that we all use every day or that we have used on us. And rhetoric in this sense is the study of written communication, especially persuasive writing. That's the ancient art that goes all the way back to Plato and Aristotle, who studied the best communication patterns. And so we're going to glean from what they have learned and that we're finding is still very much accurate today. And this is a Prezi presentation. I did not create it, but it has everything in it that I want. And I will be asking you if you like Prezis or if you prefer something else. There's a lot of movement. So if you're sensitive to movement, this might bother you. If you are already not liking it, just stop the video, email me and say, I need this in a PowerPoint or something more straightforward. And I can do that for you. But I will be asking you if you like Prezis. 100% of you may say, I love it, keep doing them. So we'll see what happens. So we are going to be looking at ethos, pathos, and logos because we don't know what these things are yet. They're happening all around us. And we're going to study them. So think about a really persuasive commercial that you've seen, one that made you want to go out and buy the thing. And you think about that, how did they get you to buy what they're selling? I mean, how did they create that need in you? And then you wanted to act on it, like commercial for McDonald's hamburger. And you just got up from your couch and went to McDonald's and bought that hamburger, besides the fact that it looked really yummy. So they say that if an advertisement or commercial succeeds in making a person buy something, it has been persuasive, or even if it's making you think about the product days later. It's been persuasive. So when we're looking at the art of persuasion, we are looking back at the ancient form of communication, of rhetoric, where these concepts began in Greece when Plato and Aristotle would study basically the speeches that were happening in the government forums. And Aristotle would notice some speeches work really well, and some speeches are not working so well. So he started seeing patterns and he wrote them down and he created textbooks, and then he started a school and he trained people to basically to be educators, to be lawyers, to be politicians, where you had the republic and each person got a vote and each person could present in front of the governing authorities. And he was able to find some ways that made speeches successful. And again, he wrote the textbooks and he taught that to people. One of the things that he learned that we're still using today are what he called the proofs. And we call them the appeals. We think of proof more like evidence, but these were the appeals. And the first one depends on the moral character of the speaker. That's what we'll call ethos. The second, upon putting the hearer into a certain frame of mind, that's pathos. And the third, upon the speech itself, insofar as it proves or seems to prove, that one is logos. So let's look at those a little more closely. Ethos is the ethical or moral considerations, or the moral or ethical qualities that come to bear in a speech or in writing. And now we use it more as the author's or the creator's credibility. How believable are they? How much even do you like them? How much do you trust them? This sense of ethos in a communication can come from inside the text. It can be from things we can point to in the text. There's a quote. Look at this wide range of people he's talked to. That's intrinsic, inside the article that we read, for example. Or it can be outside, extrinsic. We know this person. We've known this person for years. We work with this person, or we know this person to be an expert in that area. So that's extrinsic, that's outside. In anything that's written, there is an ethos, and it's either good or bad. It's kind of like when you wear clothes, there's a style, and it's either good or it's bad or it's blah. So what you want to do when you're examining text for ethos is to see how trustworthy the writer is, how well they've created that credibility, and comment on that. Be able to pick into the argument and say, this is what's making me believe this person. This is what's making me not believe this person. This is where we get the words ethical and ethics, basically the doing the right thing, it's kind of the moral thing, but without the religious overtones of those words. So it's not do the moral thing, that's what a religious organization would tell you, but in the secular world, we would be doing what's ethical. So that's where we get that word. So look at this, pretend you're sick, you go to the doctor and she gives you a prescription for a pill that would make you feel better. Would you take the pill? Well, it's the doctor. She has ethos. You trust her. She has the degree, she has the experience, she has the training. Most people would trust the doctor when given medication to solve the problem. And how would you contrast that with same situation? You're sick, you don't feel well, but your friend offers you a pill and you don't know what it is. If you want to get better and get well, maybe that's not the best choice. So now let's look at this commercial. Turn your volume down because you know this guy, he's loud. So look at the strategies he uses to create ethos with this product.
Want to know the best way to get your
So in that commercial, the ethos is used, don't start again. The ethos is used to bring in the heavy hitters of those detergent brands. And now they are even, being combined with his product. And now these washing machine companies make a dispenser for the product. So that's bringing in the ethos. These people, these companies that we've trusted to make washing machines now have a partnership. So that lends more credibility. Now, these people, when they're talking about basketball, do we believe them? It's not going to play a video for us, but I believe we have Charles Barkley for one, and it's kind of screen blurry. I can't see them all, but these are the guys that are on the inside the NBA. They've been hired by this network to talk to anybody who watches this show about basketball. I believe at least 3 of these guys are retired basketball players, so they played in the NBA. And the other guy in the brown suit, I think he has not been a player, but he's been a sports writer and commentator. So these are people who have extrinsic credibility for talking about basketball. They're believable. So if you want to talk basketball, you'll listen to these guys. Now, the next one we're going to look at, after we talked about ethos, where it's the credibility of the speaker, whether it's the information within the argument or outside of it that we just know or that's been provided for us. The second one we're going to look at is pathos, or the feelings, the emotions. And people use pathos as an appeal when they tell a story, scenarios, or statements that are designed to create an emotional response in us. They pull at our heartstrings. It's the thing that makes you tear up when you're watching that Hallmark commercial and you say you're not going to cry, but darn it, by the end of the commercial, you have a tear in your eye. So when you're persuaded by pathos, that means you're going to accept a claim or believe the argument based on how it makes you feel. And there's a place for that. We want to touch a person's emotions, but we don't want to manipulate their emotions because sometimes when we're being manipulated through emotion, we don't analyze how valid or logical the claim is. We just believe it because it made us feel a certain way. Some ways that it does this are through fear, love, patriotism, hate, joy, humor, guilt, anything that's going to incite a feeling in you that's not necessarily a logical appeal, but one that's more emotional. And as I mentioned, this can be incredibly manipulative. So once you start feeling emotionally touched with an argument, start putting your guard up because it may be okay. And it may be just that the emotion is part of the argument, or it could be something that's designed to manipulate you and keep you from thinking. They just want you to feel. Let's see if this is the commercial. No. We get words from this: empathy, which is to feel what another person is feeling. Sympathy, to understand what they're feeling. Like we have sympathy when someone has had a death in the family. We know what that feeling is like. Empathy is when we're feeling it with them, like it's like our friend also who is gone. Pathetic, which is very sad situation, and antipathy, which is like not feeling emotion. So that's where we get these words. And this next commercial, I'm going to skip the video because it's kind of long. And I think it's really sad and manipulative, but basically it's one of those ads that shows us a crash of a car and then basically tells us that someone was texting as they were driving and had a very bad outcome. So that is a way that emotion is used. And I'm not going to show it to you because it's really sad. It's like I cry every time I watch it. And so I don't want to show that. So I'm going to skip past it. And look at this one. There's a poster for, it's from World War II. So what pathos does it use? What emotion are they trying to draw out? That this woman and child, Americans, we can assume, are being threatened by the forces of World War II, of Japan and the Nazis, and we have to keep them safe. So if you want to keep these innocents safe, you will buy the victory bonds. So that's the emotion that they're working on there. And these commercials, they play them late at night when I'm trying to fall asleep, but I'm watching television, and I almost every time get out a credit card and send money to charities because it's just so moving and touching. These people who have such great needs, and that we can help them by a donation. And these are very strong emotional appeals. Pictures are frequently used in addition to the words that make us just feel. The feeling is overriding the logic, and we're just absorbed in the sadness and the compassion for people and animals and other situations that can use our intervention. So we've looked at ethos, where it's the speaker's or the writer's credibility, and we've looked at pathos, which is emotion, and now we're going to look at logos, or the logic or reason. And that refers to any attempt to appeal to our intellect. This presentation said it appeals to the left side of our brain, whichever side of the brain it is, or whether it's the whole brain. We're using our logic and our thoughts and our cognition and our smarts to see patterns, conventions, methods of reasoning. We're looking at data, numbers, polls, facts, statistics. Those are all uses of logic. And factual things, verifiable facts are important whenever we're using logos. This is, if we were in Star Trek, this is Spock's logical brain, where emotion and pure opinion and don't really count. We need the facts. We get the English words from this: logic and logical. So let's look at these. We have, 5 seconds, the minimal amount of time your attention is taken away from the road when you're texting and driving. That's a fact. That's a data point. They don't give us documentation. We can assume there is documentation somewhere that has determined that it is 5 seconds. And then the next square, if you're traveling at 55 miles per hour, this equals driving the length of a football field without looking at the road. Well, when we're given that comparison, suddenly that 5 seconds means something very different. That's gotten our attention because it's factual, it's a data point. We can also, we've all seen a football field, we know how long it is. Our attention has been gained. So we're going to skip that because we didn't look at both of those. We're going to look at this one. It's a quick commercial. Look at the fact. What fact is emphasized here?
What might you find in Progresso Light?
Artificial flavor. Monosodium glutamate. That's MSG.
All light soups are not created equal. Select Harvest Light has good stuff.
Pasta with whole grain, natural sea salt. There's roasted natural chicken in here.
Progresso weighs their light soup down with MSG and sodium.
Sodium.
This is heart healthy. 80 calories.
New Select Harvest Light from Campbell's. Real ingredients, real taste.
More, please.
Okay, the fact that emphasizes that this one soup is much healthier than the other one, and they use the chemical, they read the ingredients list, the data that shows us what's in that can of soup to prove to us that one soup has the nasty stuff and one is healthy. So with these three appeals, the logos, the ethos, and the pathos, effective persuasion will use all of them in a balance or use them appropriately. Logos and pathos are things that within an article you're reading, you can find them, you can mark them, you can point to them, you can say that sentence has logos because it's using data, it's using facts, it's using numbers, it's using statistics. This sentence is using pathos because it's trying to make me afraid, or it's trying to make me happy, or it's bringing up a very uncomfortable subject. So those are things that you can find them, you can point them out in a paper. Ethos is a little bit more complex. An entire article might show the ethos of a writer, and you might not be able to just point to one thing, or you might be able to point to three things, that they use 3 different sources. And so those were good sources to use. They presented a well-balanced argument. So the ethos has been established by the way the writer included sources. So again, everything is going to have ethos. It's just a matter of how well it's done. And you can have logos and or pathos in different articles you read or different videos or commercials that you watch. So looking at these examples, which is it? My 3 decades of experience in public service, my tireless commitment to the people of this community, and my willingness to reach across the aisle and cooperate with the opposition make me the ideal candidate for your mayor. This one is, drum roll please, which one is it? I hope you were thinking ethos, because this one is all about the credibility of this writer. Number 2, they've worked against everything we've worked so hard to build, and they don't care who gets hurt in the process. Make no mistake, they're the enemy, and they won't stop until we're all destroyed. This is a quote that I think someone just made up. It's not taken from any news source, and it was written probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. You are going to say that this one is an appeal to, yes, pathos, to the emotions. It's the fear that someone is going to take away something that is mine and I'm going to get hurt. So that one is pathos, an appeal to the emotions. More than 100 peer-reviewed studies have been conducted over the past decade, and none of them suggest that this is an effective treatment for hair loss. So this one is, you are going to say, yes, you are going to say logos, because it's talking about scientific studies. Peer-reviewed means that a doctor wrote the study and his or her peers, other doctors, reviewed it and have said this meets our standards of information that we publish. Number 4, don't be the last person on the block to have their lawn treated. You don't want to be the laughing stock of your community. So which one is this? Yes, this one is pathos. It's fear that you don't want to be left out, fear of missing out, FOMO, and you don't want to be laughed at. So that fear of being an object of ridicule. So this would be an example. We're not going to use it, but when you're needing to persuade someone, such as extending the curfew or getting a privilege that you want, using ethos, pathos, and logos would be an effective way to go. So that's been our presentation on the ethos, pathos, and logos. And now you're ready to go to step 3 and look at how it's been used.